All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Industrial Executive Podcast. I'm your host, Todd Hockenberry. I'm very excited today. Our guest is Sunny Han, who's the CEO and founder of Fulcrum Pro. And they are a company providing cloud-based enterprise. That's not even a word, Sunny.
It's a new one now.
I told you it would be me. It would be me.
All
right, let's do that again. 3, 2, 1. This is Todd Hockenberry, and this is the Industrial... That's twice. Okay, third time's the charm. 3, 2, 1. This is... Is it Friday yet?
Not one more day.
All right. So, all right, let's try this again. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Industrial Executive Podcast. This is Todd Hockenberry, your host. I'm excited today. Our guest is Sunny Han. He's the CEO and founder of Fulcrum Pro, a company providing cloud-based enterprise resource planning software systems for forward-thinking manufacturers. Welcome to the show, Sunny.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So tell us about your company. How did you get started? What's the story?
Yeah, we started 5 years ago by building some fully custom ERP systems for a bunch of small businesses, many of them manufacturers. After working with smaller businesses for quite some time, it really seemed like there wasn't very much technology that was out there that was fit for them. It was all built for really big companies, all super custom, all really expensive, didn't really work that much. Everybody was using a lot of paper. There's so many things that are going on in the world. And, you know, I had the opportunity as a little kid, as an 8-year-old, hanging out at my mom's computer lab when she was getting her master's degree here at the University of Minnesota. I saw the Gopher internet system rise up and then blow up, and what we now know as the internet kind of come to be. Just seems that for many different industries, manufacturing being a big one, it just doesn't seem like the internet's really touched them. A lot of stuff is still done really manually. A lot of stuff is still done in ways that just don't seem like the most efficient ways that they could be done. So looking at the problem, the underlying technology is the problem, and we're going to solve that. So
why do you think that's so for so many manufacturers, that they don't adopt, you know, modern cloud-based internet software type of products? Why they don't see the value in it? What do you think the reason is?
It's a really interesting question, a paradoxical one, because if you think about manufacturing, they're the first industry to have ever adopted technology. I think there's a statistic that I overquote that 34% of all of the software industry in 1989 was for manufacturing resource planning systems. So one of the first industries to really double down on computer automation. If you didn't buy into CNC machines as a thing in the 80s and 90s, you probably don't exist today, right? There's companies that have upgraded from 2-axis machines to 3-axis to 4-axis to 5-axis, and every time they've gained new markets and gained new margins. So I would say that overall manufacturers are really quite early adopters on almost all technologies. I think honestly there's some prejudice or bias towards software. There's a lot of software that is sold to manufacturers that doesn't actually work very well for them. I think there's a lot of people that significantly misunderstand manufacturing. I think unfortunately, there's a lot of bad products that are sold as well. So really keeping to our word, really working to do what's right by our customers, really looking at delivering value. That's where we start from. That's kind of the heart of how we work with our customers. The technology is really important, but it's an ancillary piece to establishing a trust-based relationship with them and actually delivering value to every single one of our customers. So, yeah.
It's interesting. I go back to the 80s in manufacturing, and I was involved with some software ERP system projects for manufacturing companies in the 90s. And I would have agreed with you. I would have said that there's a misunderstanding of what software can do for them. And I think a lot of people have got burned. They got into these, like you use the word custom, you know, kind of one-off installations, and they were sold, you know, they took forever to install. They took forever. They didn't work the way they thought they were going to work. And I think there's probably a lot of reticence to kind of go back to that. So how do you solve that issue? How do you simplify software and ERP systems for companies, especially small ones, right? They're not going to make a huge investment in a packaged product. How do you do that at Fulcrum Pro to create software that is affordable for small manufacturers?
For me, I probably get overly philosophical about everything, but I don't believe that you can incrementally change something that has a huge amount of momentum that's going in a direction that you don't think things should go. I think you have to change everything about it. So for us, we don't price by users. It's just one fee for your company. It doesn't go up for the entire duration of the contract. We don't charge by the hour for implementation. It's a fixed cost. It's roughly 90% less than most of the competitors that are out there. We don't want to be incentivized to generate more billable hours. We have everything is completely cloud-based. We push updates almost every week. We give everything to everybody. There's no modular-based things. We're not doing anything in our company to try to optimize the relationship. It's really there to optimize the end user. And a lot of times software is sold to owners because that's who has the power. But we really operate on the belief that if you can make the software really good for the end user, more data will come into the system, more things will be able to be done automatically, and you'll see increase in profitability, you'll see increase in margin. And isn't that really what the whole purpose of doing anything in business is to make yourself more efficient so you can operate better? And so that's hard at times. Obviously, there's some deals that we could operate more like some of the bigger competitors that we're working with, in this market with, and resisting that temptation is hard sometimes. But yeah, I think our commitment to doing that, to putting our customer first, is really first and foremost to it. And secondarily, because all of those things aren't in place, we can really cut through it. We're automating our own implementation services away using technology. That cuts revenue. We don't charge by the hour, but certainly we're doing less services every single customer, delivering the same results. And we're investing in really long-term things. We're doing things that everybody can benefit for, but not one of these smaller companies could pay for, right? And historically, you'd have to find a big company to really bankroll you, but then it becomes their thing and not the thing for everybody, right?
So I love what you're talking about, really putting the customer first and thinking about a customer first orientation. Do you pitch that when you talk about your software and your solutions, that when your customers implement what you're talking about, this type of a cloud-based ERP system, that they can then deliver more for their customer? Is that ultimately the outcome you're trying to promote?
Hopefully our people that are in sales talking to our customers aren't pitching very much. We really try to push this philosophy of figuring out a problem that we can solve. And if there isn't one, get the heck out of there, right? So I think that it's somewhat surprising, and I don't mean that in a diminutive way, but it's a little surprising in a really positive way that every one of our customers we've worked with, the first thing they care about is their own customers. And so we really haven't met anybody in the marketplace that we've done business with who is all about maximizing their margins at the expense of others. I don't know if it's because of manufacturing itself and how things work and how interconnected it is, but there really aren't that many zero-sum game thinkers, right? Everybody is thinking about this as a joint effort, that they're a part of something. I think it's harder and harder in our current economy and in the way that we do business for manufacturers to know where they are, right? To understand their importance and where they're at. I think how we used to make things and how we used to design things, it was easy to say, I built this component for this rocket that went to space, or I built this thing for this door that went into a car. And because things are more componentized and things are more distributed, it's really hard to kind of feel, where am I in this ecosystem? And so I think one of the coolest things I hope to achieve is getting the ability for every one of these manufacturers to really understand that automatically whenever they want to kind of explore where the stuff that they make went to and how it fits into everything. But I don't think I need to sell them on that. I think they already feel very connected to each other.
Yeah, I use the word pitch intentionally, and you answered. You did what I was hoping you were going to do, right? Because too many times when I see software companies today, there's so many of them out there, right? It is a pitch, right? It is like the three options, pick this, and there's no connection to me, to my issues, to the problems that I have. And to me, I think there's a balance there between customizing your product too much and standardizing it so that you don't you can't personalize it. I think there's a balance there, and that's interesting. I'm going to ask you a question later about your buying process, so we'll come back to this particular topic. So I appreciate the digging into that topic a little bit, because I think it is an issue with a lot of manufacturing companies dealing with software and the tools, and it's a hard decision to make, and it's because there's so much riding on it when you make an investment in ERP.
Absolutely.
So let's jump back a little high level. I know I'm passionate about manufacturing. I know you are too. So talk about the importance of the revival you're seeing kind of in the heart of manufacturing here in the U.S.
It feels like it went away, especially as we outsourced a bunch of stuff to China, in the early 2000s and things like that. But I always joke all the time with the team, like if we had everything taken away from us and we're shivering cold on a tropical island somewhere, we wouldn't invent a stock market right away, right? Like we would figure out how to make clothes and make tools and make shelters, and the key operant word in there is make, right? Everything we have, everything we enjoy is made by somebody. And excuse me, I think that what's reviving is the interest in it. I think if you look at history, we go through these waves of manufacturing industry is gross to manufacturing industry is full of craftsmen, and the sentiment about what it means to make something has different meaning throughout time. And I think hopefully what I'm seeing is a trend towards actually glorifying the methods and the materials that we use to make stuff. I think people are getting interested in how their stuff is made, and I think that's a good thing. I think that makes society as a whole make better decisions, and it helps us really respect the people that are doing the work. I don't actually know the exact statistics, but the number of college graduates that are happily making really good wages as manufacturing shop floor operators and machinists and engineers is rising a lot. And I think we'll continue to see that trend. And I think that's good for everyone, because as we use better things, our lives get better, right? So there's other revivals too. We've as the ugliest way that I can say it is that we've been taking advantage of a wage discrepancy between us and Asia for a long time. And I don't see how you could believe that that's going to continue indefinitely. At some point in time, that's going to go away. And a lot of the automation that we've seen from robotics and from other efficiency gains, I think we're at this tipping point where we can actually start to make stuff here that we use here, instead of digging ore out of the ground, shipping it to China, machining it there, shipping it to Singapore, and then shipping it to Japan, then shipping it to Mexico, only to be sold back in China, right? So there's a lot of places where if you're like me and used to be a consultant, you can make the case for all these incremental changes, but they create these complicated systems that just don't make sense when you look at it from the top level. So I think we're getting to the point in time where we're going to head back to things that actually make sense from a common sense standpoint. And a lot of that's going to be manufacturing production returning to the US. So
well, we're seeing that in a number of industries. Obviously, this year's been a big disruption in terms of supply chains and as critical materials or critical products, precursors, components, things like that. So what's interesting is I'm in Orlando, and I know a number of manufacturers down here, particularly in the molding area, and you're talking about running CNC machines. The biggest issue they have is they find skilled operators, right? And so they actually are investing in training, and they're actually having to work with universities and trade programs to be able to train people. I would love to see our school systems, and I even see ads now every once in a while, think about trade school as opposed to college and alternatives, because you're right. They're really good jobs, and they're very fulfilling, and not everybody needs to be sitting at a desk, and not everybody needs to be sitting at a computer screen, right, all day long. Some people like to be on the shop floor and smell the cutting oil and the work and get their hands dirty. And I know I do. I always enjoyed it and love being in those factories. So do you think this is a broad-based revival, or is you mentioned like additive manufacturing or machining? Is it broad-based, do you think, or is it narrowly defined or narrow industries?
I think that as an individual or even as a company, the wisest thing we can do is just react to trends that are happening, right? I'm certainly not powerful enough to control any of these trends, but you can see it in consumer goods already. You can see that there's a new Apple iPhone model every single year. The designs and models for cars change more frequently than before. There's just more products that are more personalized, that are smaller, quantities that are more unique, right? Like Warby Parker with direct-to-consumer stuff, or with even water bottles like BKR and things. There's this understanding that products are no longer generic because we don't need to make 40 million of them to make the economies of scale make sense, right? And we're going to see more of that with 3D printing, with better supply chains, with better connectivity. I think what's going to happen no matter what, it's not going to be because of me. Hopefully I'll be there to help usher it along as efficiently as possible, is that we'll just feel like the expressions of our ideas and creativity will come to fruition much more fluidly and much easier. So that is really where things are going, and that leads to this revival, right? It leads to and there's pockets of it that you've already seen, like in coffee bean roasting. They used to be done in giant facilities that roasted huge amounts of coffee that were blended from different places, and we're seeing more single origin coffees that are roasted locally, that print the roast date on them, that give you a sense of the supply chain. Who knew when their coffee was roasted in 1994, when I started drinking coffee? So no one. I think it's already happening, and there's so many merits to it that I can't imagine it not happening everywhere.
So what does the future look like for manufacturing? What are some of the trends you think will accelerate over the next few years?
I think that materiality will get more diverse, which is a great thing. There'll be different ways of using materials. When I talk internally, we try to dig down into first principles and think about adding energy to material to make it more useful, right? And I think that concept will get raw, like more direct and a lot less muddy and a lot less complicated. I think that if you want me to, like, my dreams about manufacturing is turning it into this giant engine that just works in concert to deliver the right product to the right place at the right time and inform designers and engineers of what's even possible, right? Imagine if you're in AutoCAD or in some other drafting program, and as you change the shape or profile of a piece, it tells you, well, your supply chain risk increased, your cost went down, your this and that, here are the methods you're going to have to use. That feedback loop doesn't exist. I have to design it, prototype it, see where the manufacturability is, and reiterate. If that could all happen in my head within the same day, just imagine how much quicker we can make products a lot better, right? That's how I imagine the future. I imagine this connectivity between your imagination and the reality of making it come true. And I think there's a lot of technology that can facilitate that.
Oh, fantastic! I love that. That's really well said. Um, so, so let's talk about some of the shop floor stuff. Let's get down into kind of some more nuts and bolts here. Again, obviously, with an ERP system, you're dealing with a lot of the shop floor and the back office stuff. So, what are some of the big trends you're seeing on the shop floor right now?
Well, most existing systems that are out there, you can think of the primary user interface, right? Like if your phone has something that you're interacting with, that's the user interface. The primary user interface for shop floors is paper. And paper is kind of a terrible interface, right? It can be corroded by acid, it can get burned, it can get wet, it can bleed, it can sit in a bin with a bunch of information on it, never being able to return to something that can be analyzed and make better decisions with for months, for years. It's just lost, right? And so there's a huge amount of value, if you can think about it, in being able to see what's going on live. And it's no more work for your employees to write something on a piece of paper if we make the interface nice enough digitally that you can enter it directly in. There's a huge difference in looking at your rearview mirror 2 weeks in arrears to looking at a dashboard in front of you live as you're driving, right? You can drive a lot faster that way. So um, I think that trend of harnessing the power of data that has been exploited and used very well by many other industries will finally come to manufacturing, and we'll finally see shop floor data flow into decision-making processes that actually prevent issues from happening instead of just reacting to problems happening after the fact. I think that shop floor employees are getting more savvy, regardless of age and background. We were really afraid when we rolled out our digital job tracker that people wouldn't be able to figure it out, but we haven't had anybody call and be like, I don't know how to use this. And so I think there's just a higher level of technological savviness that is ubiquitous now that's already happening. And I think that most of the shop floor employees that I've talked to and that I've interacted with, they understand that work is an interaction between a system and themselves, and that they're actually thankful for it. They're thankful for being able to focus on the tactile, like enjoyable feeling of making something, right? Like we were talking about earlier, some people like to be in the middle of seeing something happen. Like there's a human enjoyment out of taking raw bar stock and making it into a useful part that you know is going to go into an engine of a V8 that's going to be able to go from 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds or something like that. Like I feel like as a human, there's something cool about knowing that you made something. And if we can continue to focus humans on what humans are good at and automate those tasks away, I think that trend will continue because it's a powerful one.
I love it. I want to jump over and jump kind of back to what we were talking about a little bit about sales and marketing. How do you, the reason I want to ask this question, because virtually everybody I talk to in the manufacturing world is interested in growing and in reaching new audiences, right? And they're not always great at marketing and sales. So how do you market Fulcrum Pro? What kind of tactics do you use to connect with your B2B buyers, manufacturing buyers right now?
For us, it's a balance of inbound and outbound. So we know that what we have right now is something that people aren't searching for because they don't know that it exists. Some people do. Some people are making some crazy Google searches that we can either put some content out there for or whatever. And I think that there's a growing mass of people that are frustrated with what's out there. And so they're looking for things and attaching keywords like modern or well-designed or easy to use or powerful to it. And we do get some people finding us like that. But for us, there's this concept that outbound and inbound are at odds with each other, and they're really not, right? They're both there to create a sense of awareness about what you're doing. And for manufacturers specifically, just being able to be out there so that people can find you when they need a CNC machinist, when they need someone who has a 6-axis machine or whatever it is, that's really important. And that's the same for us. We show our software on our website, the actual interfaces, screenshots of it. We tell you exactly what our philosophies are on our mission page and about why us. We directly communicate with you through in-app chat, and you can book a demo right away. You can get in contact with a human instantaneously if you want to. We want the internet not to be an automation engine that just saves time and here, go read it yourself. We want it to be a way that we pre-filter people so that we're talking to the relevant people that want to do something new, that want something that's future-proof. And then we want to throw as much human time at it as possible because that's what people deserve, right? So for me, like I think there's a big misnomer, especially in B2B SaaS sales, where outbound is seen as like pestering people and inbound is seen as automating that away. I don't think that's the case. I think you need outbound to increase awareness, and I think you need inbound to pre-filter people so that you're spending the right time with the right people. So that's how we see it. We want to talk to the people that we know we're going to do a great job for. And part of that is making sure that when they search for us, we're there. And the other part of it is making sure that we're doing a really classy job at making people see us, right? So
I love it. That's really well said. I do a lot with inbound. My book, Inbound Organization. We talk about the inbound marketing changes and how it applies to the organization. And I get that question. Well, what about outbound? Right? Should you never make phone calls? Shouldn't you reach out to people? And the answer is, of course, you should. If you know who they are and you know you can make a difference for them, you owe it to them to reach out to them and connect with them. So
for sure,
it's. I love how you said that. It's definitely a combination of both. So let's talk about the buying process now. Obviously, software and ERP systems, that's more of a complex sale. There's lots of moving parts. There's lots of milestones, people involved. How has that process changed this year in the middle of a pandemic, or has it?
For larger companies that were more complex in how they operated, we almost always did a site visit on our dime just to visit them. And yeah, it was nice to socialize with them and meet them in person, but it was also insanely valuable to see how they operated in person, right? Because there's just a lot of details that you don't even know to ask. And for us, in order to make sure that the implementation process is really smooth, we need to know all of that as well ahead of time as possible, right? So for us, what it's really done is it's kind of shifted some work from pre-sale to post-sale. So we're still really confident we can do something for them. We are taking a look at their data remotely. People are giving us access to their servers temporarily so that we can dig around instead of doing it on site. So we've adjusted there to some extent. But during the implementation phase, we're sometimes not meeting the end managers or the end users until after we've gotten a sale, after our customer has signed up. And our implementation team were really investing in and hiring more people that have a background in in customer service that are really empathetic, but also can write a SQL query and can do some technical stuff and help you massage your data into our system. So it's a difficult hire, as you can imagine, someone who really enjoys working with people and also can do some analytical work. But that investment has paid off a lot. And I think it's an accidental, not innovation, but an accidental shift in where things happen, because it's actually in that implementation phase that you're selling, if you will, the end users, and you're razzling and dazzling them and making it work well for them. And I think that if we had to be on site to train you and train the trainer and do a seminar and all this other stuff, and people would fall asleep from their home offices or from some safe conference room at the customer's job site, I think that would just be really inefficient. I think our really human process that we've implemented is kind of the secret to why we're growing so fast, even in the pandemic.
I love it. Okay, 3 quick questions to finish. Quick answers here. So what's your biggest challenge this year so far?
Growing. As most smaller business owners like us, we're a small business. As they know, growing costs money. We've raised outside funding from some fantastic investors to help us with that. But there's a challenge when you're going from 4 people that have worked together for 4 years and then growing that team to 14 people. You can hire 10 really great people, and we really have. We still need time to let that marinate, right? Let people get to know each other and gel and work really well together. Also, as you grow really quickly, a lot of things that you did well, you kind of forget about, unfortunately, and a lot of things that you're doing that you're trying new don't work out, and so it really feels like chaos sometimes. But we've reined it in, and we're going to continue to focus on prioritizing our company as, people first, people including our customers and our own people, then product, then profit last. And the investor injection of capital has really helped us prioritize our company that way. And that's our biggest challenge this year and going into next year, safely and responsibly controlling the rapid growth we're about to experience. So
nice. People first. You're speaking my language with that one. So what's your biggest opportunity you think coming up?
I think this trend in people thinking about, hey, is what I'm doing right now really future proof? I think the biggest opportunity is, man, I actually can't use my software system remotely without buying another computer and doing a VPN thing and whatever, this, that, and the other thing, right? And so I think it is a moment of reflection. I know for me, outside of work, even at home, it's been a great time for me to both work really hard and spend more time with my wife that I wasn't seeing very much as I was putting long hours into the business. I think a lot of other people are having a moment of introspection, and that creates an opportunity. It creates an opportunity for you to present something to them that otherwise they had already dismissed as solved. And for us, that as a new startup doing something really new and really exciting, that's the best opportunity that we can have.
And finally, what do you think the biggest threat is for your company this year?
For this year, I think the biggest threat is for us to, step on the gas a little too fast and burn up on reentry, right? So I think as long as we don't get too greedy or we don't fly too close to the sun, we can be Icarus 2.0 and still soar for a while. So
I love it. Sonny, you've been a fantastic guest. I love the story. How can people connect with you?
FulcrumPro.com is our website. You can book a demo with any of our people. You can find me personally on LinkedIn. Just look for Sonny Han, and there's not that many of us out there. But anybody on the team is more than willing and open and happy to talk to anybody that has any questions. So.
Gotcha. And I'll make sure those links get in the show notes and on the website. And you have a fantastic website. Manufacturers should take a look at it. And there's some really great ideas there in terms of being customer oriented about, like you said, talking about who you are and what you do and who you do it for. Great job. Thanks, Sonny.
Thank you, Todd.
Again, this is Todd Hockenberry, host of the Industrial Executive Podcast. Thank you for listening. If you like the show, please go to iTunes and give us a rating. And if you have a guest you'd like to hear us interview, we'd love to have you reach out. And please share the show with others in the manufacturing space. We're passionate about manufacturing, and we know you are too. Thanks for listening.